Howdy folks, Windy Wanders the City, sorry. This is your host Paul. We are on the Western bus. This is the X49, so it's an express service, has limited stops as we travel south. We're one stop away from where we'll catch the train. So we're going to take the bus down to the highway. The train runs down the middle of the highway. And then we will transfer over to the CTA Blue Line. We're only going to go in one stop, so it's just that you all know that I love walking. It's just that it's not really an exciting walk from here to the Medical District. So if you've been on a bus before, right, you just heard the ding. That was somebody requesting a stop. We're at Jackson Boulevard right now. The next stop is going to be the Blue Line. Something else. Hi, Nance. How are you doing? Something else you might find interesting is off the front of the bus, there's a bicycle. So the bus allows for 2 bicycles per bus to go ahead and be rested on the bike rack in front of the bus. I wouldn't say this is an ADA compliant, but the bus does kneel when it comes to stops. So that's interesting. And this will be our stop.
West Blue Line Station.
I'm at the rear door, and you'll notice we've got the signs here. When the bus stops, I'll be able to push on this door and leave. Now, when you get on the bus, you have to come in the front door. Just before I go into this western stop, I'll kind of show you what we're going to look at. So here we're looking back into the city. You're looking down the Eisenhower Expressway. This turns into Congress. So within a mile or two, this becomes just a regular street. Very far down the ways, you'll see the old post office. You've got the Sears Tower on the left. On the right, you'll see the Medical District. There's a white building that you can't really see from here, but we'll get there in a moment. But right now, we'll head down into the train station, and we will catch the next Blue Line. Actually, I had terrible timing there. We just had a Blue Line go in. So we might have a bit of a wait here. We'll chat for a bit as we walk down this ramp. If you've ever looked at a map, and we'll probably be able to see one here at the platform station, the Blue Line on its southern leg runs east-west, and it goes from the city center, following this highway, and this highway is also an east-west highway, out to 294, basically. The Blue Line only goes out to Harlem Avenue. It really goes out to a place called Forest Park, which is just past Harlem Avenue. And then after it leaves the city going north, it leaves on a northwest trajectory following the Kennedy Expressway. So as you can see here, we've got an 11-minute delay. Right. So on this map, we're right here. Again, I said that as I walk down the ramp, we're walking this direction, and that'll take you out to Forest Park. And then if you come in, you go through the city. And by the way, these thin lines are showing that it's a subway at this point. So here we're above ground. Here it's a subway. And then it follows out to O'Hare, taking a northwest trajectory down the Kennedy Expressway. This is, traditionally this would have been a tougher neighborhood. If you are in this area, one thing that we have, you can see the bridge going over the highway just ahead of me. That's a pedestrian. That first bridge that you're seeing is a pedestrian bridge. And there are several of those because this is a limited access highway, right? Not every street lets you get onto the highway. It's usually every half mile-ish that you can get on. And you're seeing, again, the traditional 3-story buildings here, and that's mostly a fire code element, right? That it's as high as the fire trucks can get in this space. Good morning, Nance. Howdy, Quiz. Great to see you as well. We're gonna take one stop in, and maybe since it's we're about 10 minutes from the next train. I might have been better off walking. Uh, if you look at this street, so you've got to the south of us is going to be Harrison, and then the next street south of that is Flournoy, and Flournoy is it's an interesting street based upon the other channel that it's got in history. But there are some beautiful homes on Flournoy as you walk back into the city. There's kind of an unwritten boundary in this area. We're very close to the United Center. As you get to the Medical District, once you pass east of the Medical District, and again, I'm making hasty generalizations, the neighborhood becomes traditionally safer. Now, I don't think that these neighborhoods are unsafe by any means out here. I'm always going to say, if you're out on the streets, make sure you're paying attention. I always say, have your head on a swivel. Most criminals are opportunistic, and as long as you're paying attention and they don't have an opportunity to sneak up on you, you're probably in pretty good shape. But be that as it may, this would have been a less financially desirable area. Right? If you go through here, you're going to be in food deserts out in this neighborhood. Most of the shopping is going to go through bodegas here, and the fresh fruit. It'll be hard to find fresh fruit, fresh meat. Now you will find some ethnic butcher shops in these neighborhoods that will have the meats. I'm going to say the soup meats that are less traditional for affluent families. And I hope this doesn't sound overly bigoted in that the wealthiest people would take the best cuts of the cow and leave the remainder for people who couldn't afford as much. And that's one of those things that I love about some of the cooking that comes out of those lower economic communities, that they can get so much flavor out of things like neck bone or collard greens, where these would have been waste products for the affluent families in that space. These neighborhoods today, I never feel any concern walking through these neighborhoods. I never feel any concern running through these neighborhoods. You're also seeing an awful lot of traffic, right? So this is the inbound. And since COVID, this is easy inbound traffic, right? That normally it can be very challenging. Before COVID, this would have just been a train wreck trying to get in. You can see that you've got the blue line going out to Forest Park on the other side has just arrived. On the CTA, at most train stations, you're going to see signage that's going to give you some indications. So that I don't think it's showing up on the camera. It might be an LED frequency element, but it's telling me I've got 6 minutes for the next train. And on this side, it's only telling me the trains that are going inbound. On the other side, it only tells you the trains that are going outbound. I would guess it'll be about 10 minutes before we really get to the medical district. So let's chat about what are some of the things that we think we're doing right on the channel. What are some of the things that you'd like to see improved? I will never get taller or better looking, so those are probably out of bounds. There still are plenty of parks over here. You're going to see, again, I've always told you that Chicago always wanted to preserve its green space, or it was built into the city that we would have green space. So there are several small parks in these neighborhoods. Usually they'll take up one block or half of a block. The streets have, so if you're in downtown Chicago, The streets are numbered by half blocks, so there's 50 blocks. Thank you, Nancy. So in the city, the block will be 50, 150, 200, 250, 300, 350. But once you've gotten out here, it's only going by hundreds. Here you're seeing kind of the way that the train schedule works here. On the right-hand side, you're seeing all the stops. You're seeing north at the top and south at the bottom. And then the train is supposed to come every N minutes, depending upon the time of day. So during rush hour, right, it's coming much more frequently than it is on the weekend. You get out to Sunday after 10 p.m. and it's every 20 minutes. So you're only getting 3 trains an hour. I know that we've seen this a little bit on some of the other trains, but in the lower left, you can kind of see the inner city insets, and you've got the brown, the orange, the pink, and the green that are kind of going around that box loop, and that is the loop or the elevated tracks are right there. A couple things that are somewhat interesting to me is that if you look at the pink, the orange, and the brown, they have a lollipop look. And with that lollipop look, they go once around the loop and then they exit where they enter. So the orange line exits at that lower right-hand corner, and it's going to head out to Midway. The brown line is going to go north at the upper, at the top left corner, or northwest, and that's going to continue going up northwest. And then the pink line exits out to the west at the northwest corner. Now the green line also goes out there, but it doesn't go around the loop. It actually then turns and goes south out the southwest corner of the loop. We've talked about before, the 2 long lines are the blue line and the red line. Let me see if I can back up enough. If I back up too much, I'm going to end up on the tracks, and that's probably not good. But the red line goes from the Dan Ryan to the south. And by the way, there's plans for that to be extended. It's going to go further south soon. And then it travels all the way up north to the Howard Station. And the color district, the change in color here is Chicago versus Evanston. So this is just showing the 2 different boundaries. Evanston always had its yellow line that would take you a little bit further west in Skokie to that point. And then the purple line now also goes all the way north through Evanston up to Linden. And Linden is where the Baha'i Temple is. Where you see the purple dashed line there, that's an express line. So during rush hours, the people that get on at Howard, they can go all the way down to the loop without any stops. What else is somewhat interesting? So last week, we looked at the Brown line, and we went from Western to Rockwell to Francisco to Kedzie to Kinsey. Again, you can see we're at Western right now. I'm going to go 1 stop inbound, and we're going to hit the Illinois Medical District. Train's looking to be about 3 minutes away. And by the way, those times are usually pretty accurate. Let me give you a little bit more help reading this map. So down here, where you see the red line and the green line crossing, you can't transfer from one to the other. This is not a transfer station. The green line is going over the top of the red line. However, here at Roosevelt, you can see this little, the dots that are connected. That shows you that there's a causeway that you can get from the green line to the orange line to the red line at this station. Similarly, down here on the Clinton line, you can do both the pink and the green, and Ashland, you can do the pink and the green. You can see that Clark Station is a rather major station. You can get to almost all the lines. You can even get to the subway at Clark. And you see a similar element on this particular signage, right? We're going to see where we're at. If I get to Jackson on this line, I can transfer to 4 different lines. If I get to Washington, I have 1 more option. And if I get to Clark and Lake, I've got 5 options. Basically giving us our coordinates within the city. So we're 400 blocks south, and we're 24 blocks west. The 00 in Chicago is State and Madison. So State is a northwest street. Every street east of State is an east. The number goes up eastward, and then every number west goes upward westward. Oh, I showed you right that the traffic coming in, not enjoyable, but this isn't terrible. So for Chicago, I think this is incredibly good traffic. You can see the outbound traffic, right? They're just going at breakneck speed. Nothing really stops them. I've always liked being a reverse commuter here because you could get out of the city very easily in the morning, and you could usually get into the city. Now that it's heavier residents, it's a little bit harder, but you could usually get back into the city pretty easily in the evening. This highway has static lanes on both sides. So you see that you've got the 4 lanes outbound, 4 lanes inbound, and there's no change. When the blue line goes to the Kennedy, they have some temporary lanes or transitional lanes that in the morning they open up the middle lane, which is 2 lanes, and that allows people who are coming inbound to get 2 extra lanes of traffic. In the evening, they reverse that, and those streets travel outbound. I'm getting a lot of noise. I hope you're not getting as much noise as I am, but here we've got the blue line. Kind of fortunate here. Not many people on this train. And our next stop will be the medical center. Inside the train, this is an older car, so everything here is just signage. You've got the signage above the door. No real indicators as to where you're at on the train. If you were to be on some of the newer trains, there are digital displays which tell you what the next stop is and which side of the train the doors will open on. In this particular part of town, the trains open in the middle, so the platform is shared between inbound and outbound. But if you are in the blue line on the northwest side, the trains run in the middle and the platforms are on the outside. The subways, again, shared platforms, so you can go down and make your choice after going down whether or not you want to go inbound or outbound. Now, the medical district gets its name most because of both the hospitals as well as the medical schools that are here. University of Illinois' medical district is in this area. Now, we have seen medical districts before, or medical areas before. If you've been with us and you've seen Streeterville, right, when we came down through the Gold Coast and we came to Streeterville, that's where Northwestern's medical centers are. So Northwestern has all of its medical centers or non-emergency spaces. There's no hospital in that area. The hospitals are distributed throughout the Chicagoland area. This hospital is Rush. So Rush is the hospital, and the university is University of Illinois. And here we're getting off again at the Illinois Medical District. A little bit loud. I've got a train going and a train coming. As the train passes by us, we'll get a good look at the hospital on the. So from down here, right, you're seeing the Rush University Medical Center, and you've got the Children's Hospital here. There's the white building. That's a new extension, and the top part of that is tri-local, and it was built above the ground. I have no idea why they never destroyed the bottom. They just built the newer wings of the hospital on top. And then we have a little bit of Rush Medical over here as well. And again, these are going to be general practitioners and specialized medicine. Sometimes the building, it's everybody in the building does the same thing. Like Northwestern has the Illinois Bone and Joint. So everybody in that building has some speciality to do with the skeletal issues. Good morning, Michelle. This is quite the lengthy train or a ramp to get up from this train platform. It is ADA compliant, but boy, this would be quite the haul to push a wheelchair up this little incline. Something else you might be seeing here is that there is a set of railroad tracks that runs over the top of this walkway there. And that is the pink line. The pink line, again, it leaves the loop at the northwest corner, just like the green line does. The green line will take you out to Oak Park. It'll go due east. It'll go due west the entire time. The pink line will come west for a little bit, and then as you can see, it naturally starts to go south. Something that's pretty cool about this, in my opinion, by the way, my opinion still matters on this channel, is that this train track is going to go through that medical center. We may see a pink train. Pink trains are not as frequent. It just doesn't service as many members of the community. But as we get up here, we'll get, I think those trees are going to block the view on this side. We'll see if the other side gives us a better view. That these trains are going to run right basically through that building underneath the white, or silver white element there. There's another thing that's kind of interesting about this particular junction of rails. I don't think that they've ever, well, I'm sure at one time they did have commuters on this. So if you look ahead of me, boy, these windows are dirty. I'm going to walk to the other side of the street real quick. So the train itself can come up these tracks, and there might have been a time in the history when commuters would have come up those tracks as well. But this usually is for out-of-service trains or trains that are changing from line A to line B. And by that I mean that they might have been a pink line train, but because the green line's more busy at that point in time, they want to transfer the train to the green line instead. And all it takes is they change the signage. The trains are the same on all of these tracks. All of the cars, all of the engines, everything's the same on all of these tracks. The only thing that's different is the signage. But you can see that there's a ramp that goes from the grade level or the street all the way up to here. And it too is going to bend. It curves right here to meet up with the pink line that's coming down from the north. And it's going to go right through this building over here. Which is the Rush Medical Center. You can see the sign still says Congress Parkway. And this just hasn't been changed over to Ida B. Wells at this point. I'm going to walk, once I get past these trees, I'll walk by there just to see if we can get a better look of how the trains move through the building there. Yeah, so here you're seeing a little bit more obviously that it's going to go right through the heart of that building. Oh, and here comes a pink train out. So the cars on the pink line are just the same as the cars on any other line, but the pink line is also a shorter line. I think the blue line and the red line are both 8 cars all the time. And historically, different stops had different amounts of availability for cars. So if you were out in the far west side, we're going to walk underneath the Rush Memorial as well. So, right, you've got the tri-lobed hospital up there. So that's really where the bed, where the patients are going to be resting and recovering. And down here are the operating rooms. And then this is more of a medical center, so you're coming to see your doctor for whatever specialty they've got. The trains in Chicago used to have different platforms. So if you were traveling along and you were on an 8-car train, some of the platforms could only service 6 cars, and all it would say is that, hey, if you're getting off at stop X, make sure that you're in the front 4 cars, right? Or something. They would always kind of give you that warning. Now, while different lines have different number of cars, once you get on any line, they have a consistent number of cars for that entire line, and all of the stations are able to accommodate that. The Rush Medical Center is rather large. So you can see that, right, we've already gone 1 block in, and it's going to extend for basically 2 more blocks. And again, this is a hospital as well as a school. So they're teaching nurses and doctors in this location. We'll take a little stroll down Harrison. This is the Edward Brennan Pavilion. Philanthropists love to put their names on things, and this is no exception. Rush is a family name. This would have, this started as the University of Illinois Medical Center. The Rush family wanted to put their name on it, and they put their name on it. And then some of the other buildings around here, I'm looking that the orthopedic, I don't know if you can see that, but there's the Sophia and George or Jorge Galante orthopedic building, right? And as I mentioned earlier, buildings oftentimes have specialities. And it makes sense because some of the equipment that's necessary to study your shoulder is the same thing that's necessary to study your knee. By the way, I'm not a doctor. So it would make sense that you would share the cost of some of those equipments. It's starting to drizzle just a little bit. Hopefully we'll make sure it doesn't get on the lens. This hotel here, so you've got the Courtyard by Marriott, it's typically for doctors coming in for, you're oftentimes going to see doctors coming in for conferences, as well as families here to visit their patients while they're, or their family while they're recovering. This building is brand new. It's gone up in the last 2 years. I used to kind of watch it grow up as I would run. And you can see that there is a pedway that connects this to the Legacy building across the street. We're at Ashland Avenue. Again, you've got the Courtyard over on the other side of the street. Yeah, I do think that we're going to get, I don't know if we're going to get stormy rain, but it looked like the humidity was heavy enough that water just is falling out of the clouds. It doesn't want to be there anymore. Here we can see some of the landscaping at the hospital, the medical center. If we were to go 2 blocks south at this point, you'd be on Taylor Street. And Taylor Street is Little Italy for the most part. And Taylor Street will bring you all the way. It'll have restaurants on both sides of the street all the way until you hit the University of Illinois Chicago campus, which is really kind of dead ahead of us, or to our right as we actually approach that. Starting to see more of the high rises. You can tell the high rises are getting closer underneath the canopy here. Something that was interesting about the Italian neighborhoods, there are 3 still distinct Italian neighborhoods here in the city. It used to be one larger city, but the expressway, this expressway that, where we rode the train, we were on the Congress Expressway, that construction divided a neighborhood. So, through, darn it, government takes your house, eminent domain, they took a large number of houses and they built the highway. Well, what that did is it separated the Italian neighborhood. So if you're on the north side of this road and closer to Grand Avenue, you're going to see an awful lot of Italian restaurants and Italian names on the apartments and post office boxes. And that's like very old school white tablecloth Italian restaurants up there. And then here you've got Taylor Street, which Taylor Street is another Italian neighborhood, but it is what would have been the southern half of that original neighborhood. I'm going to switch over to the other side because there's some nice residential buildings as we go through here. Even this condo, it's newer, right? There's courtyards in the middle, so there's places for the kids and pets to play. You've got your own parking. As I've said when we were on the train back there, the neighborhood's much more affluent here than it was the other side of the hospital. You can also kind of see that, right? We've got these newer buildings up front, and then you're seeing the back side of some older buildings. Something that you'll see, which is very common, those buildings that we're seeing, you see siding or wood, but siding is what you're seeing back here. And that is enclosing what used to be the stairwell. I'll walk up there because you can see it on the building next to it. So the building next to it, right, is entirely brick all the way to the back until you get to the back patios and the stairwell going up and down the stairs. Well, these buildings would have looked just the same, where there would have been a brick structure and then the stairwell would have been behind there. Over time, they just decided to enclose that because in the winter, it really sucks to be outside to have to go downstairs. So, right, they would enclose that. They gave themselves a little bit of extra room. And on the one to the right, you can see it a little bit more evidently that you've got that little bump out of yellow siding at the back, but then it's brick in front of it, right? So the original structure would have been the brick structure that's in front of it, and it would have added on with the enclosed stairwell there. And you can see it over here on the brown building, right? That you've got the brown siding that's, 6-8 feet wide, and the brick building in front of it. As we look across the highway right here, and we really can't get there, but Whitney Young High School is there. That's another Magnate school. And next to Whitney Young High School is the academy, the police academy is over there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk in one block to, I think it's still Flournoy here. And we're going to go past a beautiful park here that separates this Harrison from Taylor Street, which would be the street to the south. Got an elementary school on the north side of the street here. This is somewhat significant. Most of Chicago has gotten to the point where we're putting all of our utilities underground And the reason for that, right, it's more expensive to build it out originally, but because of all of the windstorms and tornadoes that come through this area, it's just much more cost effective over the long term to sink as much of the utilities as possible here. I think that we'll see it from the backside, but the church, there's a church that's on Harrison, and it has the name Notre Dame on it, and they have some not icon, a religious artifact in there that people come to see. Yeah, so here we are coming up on Flournoy, and right at this point now we're only what, a block and a half, 2 blocks south of the expressway, and this just looks like a beautiful tree-lined neighborhood, right? Wide streets, plenty of street parking. Again, the traditional 3 floors of buildings, whether they be multi-unit or family homes. Here you can see, again, this is some sepulcher of Notre Dame or something like that. Hopefully we'll see a name as we go by. Over here, much more of the row house, right? So these houses are smacked one up against one another. The little hallway here, but then you've got 3 individual buildings with only the clock line between neighbors. Go down here and look at the statuary real quick. Yes, so it's Notre Dame de Chicago. Our Lady of Holy F Chicago, Holy HF, Whole HF Chicago. But again, I think that there is some religious artifact that people will come here to come and see. Here you've got just a representation of Jesus Christ. And then go one more block in and show you the wide open green space or park that I had mentioned was down here. Again, I think this is very, very pretty, right? The brick fronts, or the brick facades, tree-lined area, very quiet. Not things, you know, these families, they'll be here for a long time. So these aren't high turnover neighborhoods right here. I don't know if you can hear it, but there's a fountain in the backyard of this building here. Just a pretty location over there. And you can see, you know, people walking, pets walking. See a gentleman over there in his button-down shirt with a briefcase over his shoulder, so heading towards the medical district. This street dead ends. It doesn't make it all the way to Loomis. This is Arrigo Park. As we walk into the park, right, it's very wide open, and you can see another park the block south of it, and then those buildings are Taylor Street down there. I'm going to walk down the sidewalk outside here just because I like this tree-lined. I love these where trees make an archway. It's just very, very peaceful, quiet, enjoyable. And in rain, it's an umbrella. And again, you've got almost cookie cutter. So a developer came through here and built the same house several times, but look like they're 2 stories with a garden apartment, and then they've got a carriage house or garage in the back. This one here looks to be a legacy mansion, so this would have been somebody who, and it looks like it might still be a single family home. Again, based upon its size, these are people that do fairly well. And then you've got an older building next to it, which would have been row housing. Just as I can tell from the front here, you can see that there's the seam of the house, but all of these houses have a common wall, but their own entry space. Little pergola. This is somewhat interesting. It looks like they have wooden stairs. Those yellow stairs look to be wooden, which is odd because most of the others are masonry or concrete. Now I feel I should be in that the point of the tour where I'm giving hypnotic or meditative chanting so everybody can remain nice and calm and relaxed. So we've got another church here, and there's a school attached to this church. This is Our Lady of Pompeii. Some statuary here. Let me give myself a vertical for it real quick. The child's father and mother were amazed at what was said about him, Luke 2:33. The Holy Family donated in 2015 by David and Renee Van Camp and family. Again, biblical passage, New Testament, on the arrival of this new carpenter / savior. We've talked about this many times, right? The alleys are where the lifeblood of the city is. So on the front, we have the beautiful facades, but then the alley is really where the services occur. And in this neighborhood, again, it's the trash is picked up back here. You can see the utility lines up above and the garages. So this is how you keep that clean look up front, and all the business goes on back here. So the anti-mullet, I guess. This slightly different, right? So they'll use their courtyard. There's a gate up there on the street, and this is a walk-through gate. But then you've got the garages. Show it up there. You've got the garages, and then the row housing elements up top. And our next transition is going to be really onto the U of I campus. So there's a building up here at Racine. It's the Credit Union Arena, but this is one of the sports arenas for the University of Chicago. Large parking lot for both the sports arena as well as the campus. This neighborhood is a couple blocks long. Um, I would always imagine that these, at one point in time, these kind of all transition over to um, faculty and professors of the university just because of their location. And again, the students have the retail street that is a block south of us, or Taylor Street. While there is no rain, it is muggy out here right now. Here again, you've got a pedestrian breakthrough to the neighborhood south, but no street breakthrough. Again, one of the reasons why this is a sought-after neighborhood, right? The idea that it has so few ways to get into the neighborhood and so few ways to get out of the neighborhood by vehicle. So it gives a sense of safety. Buildings are unique, right? Each of these houses is its own space. Next, we get a restaurant with a little patio area. They've got a fountain on their patio. So this is something common to Chicago, right? The way that they do street cleaning is that this sign will go up, and the M standing for Monday, but you can also see that. But the M is very large, so you can see it from far away. And it's streets and sanitation. And what they're telling you is you can't park on this street on this next Monday from 9 until 12. And then our street cleaners will come through. If you do leave your car there, it will likely get towed. Here we've got Tufano's, small little Italian restaurant. And the green space ahead of us is the large buildings of the you'll see the green quads as well as the larger buildings that will surround us as we go through the University of Illinois, Chicago, UIC. Historically, this would have been called University of Illinois Circle. So this was the Circle campus. And again, going back to the idea that there was the loop in the Chicago, the train tracks that surrounded the city was the loop. So Circle was a nice play on words at that point in time. And this university used to be housed on Navy Pier. So thank you so much, Michelle. The University of Illinois Chicago used to be housed on Navy Pier. So Navy Pier early on was a military training base. So we would train our fighters how to land on aircraft carriers down the pier. Then after the war, the university purchased it, and they were housed on the pier for quite some time. I cannot tell you when they moved out to this space, but then eventually the university was able to acquire the land out here, and they built all of their homes. This is really a pretty neighborhood, right? If you Vernon Park townhomes, look in here, just the beautiful landscaping, gardening that's in here. Now we're seeing the first, I don't know what each of these buildings is. I do know that they're all university buildings, but I can't tell you if this is the math or the science building. I can see a little sign there that says there's a food court in this building. But you've got now I know what it is. It's the behavioral science building. So you've got a little lawn out here. It's very interesting. I don't know if you're really able to see it here, but it's got stairways going every which way. Looks like there's all kinds of patios on the second and third floor of this building. Right out here, again, you've got Harrison Street, and this is more like a music entertainment building. So on the corner right there, you'll see comedians there, musicians there. The larger tall building that's got the UIC circle on the end of it that's across the street, that's student housing. And now we're back into more of the school buildings that are going to be surrounding us at this point in time. I do not think there is any student housing on campus. Catholic Church here, St. John Paul II. I'm sure that part of that name is derived from the fact that we had a visit from St. John Paul II when he was Pope. Very tall building here. And again, I still think that that's a school building, not a dormitory or residence. I know that back over in this area are the math and science buildings. I've been to conferences here and job fairs here. We'll run past, there's a little map on this corner. We'll go take a shot of that real quick. So, right, we walked in along, I'm trying to see if I've got my finger on it. We walked in along Flournoy Street, and then we saw the large building, the behavioral science. Here's the behavioral science building, here's the parking lot, here's the residences and the Italian restaurant that we went past. We're now right here. I can see you've got the library over here. This then covers several blocks going south, but in a thin area right there. And it's very dense in this area, right? The school buildings. There's a little archway out here that's going to get us out to basically the highway and Harrison again. Their quad is here. They've got athletic fields down there. If you were with me on the murals tour when we went through Pilsen, so Pilsen is basically, let me see if I can get my finger back on here, is basically 2 blocks south of here. The railroad tracks would have been over in this area right here. And we talked about the ball fields, and we saw them from a distance, but these are the ball fields that you would see in there. And then Halstead Street we walked up of, and it's got mostly retail on both sides of the street, but apparently the university has buildings over there as well. Kind of walk through the quad here, or walk to the quad. Again, very quiet in the morning when you're here. Even now, right? We're 9:45. It's very quiet in this area. When I'm usually running, it's somewhere between 5 and 7 a.m. So it's, almost silent. You'll almost never pass anybody when you're here that early in the morning. Turns out college students probably like to sleep in. There I am with my hasty generalizations again. Prove me wrong, folks. Prove me wrong. Again, this building I think has a food court in it, and the buildings behind it, which are taller, are the math and computer science buildings, or technical buildings. These are schools that have good R&D programs. So both in food service, they do an awful lot of R&D. Naturally, there's a medical school here. UIC just bought the John Marshall Law School, which is down on State Street in Jackson or Wabash in Jackson, but down in the middle of the loop. Seeing some interesting architecture here. There seems to be a glass ceiling to the lower parts and then almost a glass floor to the upper part. I don't think that that is structural. I think it's all design. And strangely, it's the architecture and art building that we're looking at here. So, Chris, you might be a college student, right? As I was just saying moments ago, that the college students usually aren't up early enough when I run through here. A beautiful set of spiral staircases over there. You know what? Let me go punch out there. So this right here, you can see the UIC circle down that corridor. That's the intersection of Halsted. Halsted, again, a kind of major street. Harrison, and then you can see the used to be called the Spaghetti Bowl or the Jane Byrne Exchange. That's where the northwest highways meet the east-west highway, and it's lots of cars going very fast, going in circles, trying to figure out which ramp they're supposed to take to get to which part of the city. Howdy, James. Welcome in. So this morning, you got to see a little bit of bus ride in Chicago. You got to see a little bit of train ride in Chicago. Here's the UIC Student Center. UIC is part of the University of Illinois university infrastructure, but they tend to keep themselves, they treat themselves independently in almost everything. So they probably, for contract power and buying power, they're the same university. But if you're a UIC person, you're anti-University of Illinois, and if you're University of Illinois, you're kind of anti-UIC. Or, let's see here, you have spirited rivalry. Here we can see another cafeteria, and it's part of another student center. I can see the Panda Express signage here. Great question. So here in the city, it is, I think it's 250. There was a time where it was 220. I think it's 250 right now. But that 250 gives you 3 rides for the next couple of hours. So when I got onto the bus, by the way, the bus is slightly cheaper, which is a smart way to do it. If you want to get into the system cheaper, get on a bus, which that one is anywhere from 180 to 250, depending on which bus you're getting on. And then you can transfer to a train for free. So you get your original ticket is 250 plus 2 transfers within a 3-hour period. Yes, the UIC Flames. So sports-wise, the UIC Flames hockey is kind of a big deal. I don't know if they're still prominent, but it is the team here at UIC. And I have to imagine they were probably the best hockey team of all of the Illinois. Roller. Although I will say that I'm sure that my demographics on this channel are similar to the other channel where we don't have a lot of teenagers on this channel. You know what? I'm going to walk out through here because we're going to be right onto Halsted. Again, little public artwork here in the dorm. So Chicago used to have derby. Well, there was roller derby. There was roller skating, and I think that roller skating was everywhere. But roller skating was something you could do here in Chicago. But we had roller derby. We also had wrestling. So as I had mentioned earlier, right, the math, science, engineering, you're seeing that that's what this set of buildings is. There are 4 entrances here, and they happen to be not the 4 cardinal directions, but whatever the non-cardinal directions are, southeast, northeast, southwest, northwest. And we've got the street down here, but as you saw from the map, there is quite a bit of north to south exposure of this campus. So the campus looks mostly like an L. It travels down Harrison, and then it hugs Harrison and it hugs Halsted. Halsted being the north-south street, Harrison being the east-west street. Looks like they just put another extension on a building over here. Yeah, this would have been a parking lot 2 years ago. But yeah, another building extension here. So I'm going to say this, if you can figure out a way to get into universities, it looks like there's good money in it. Intriguing artwork like that up there. Just blocks all over the place. And then the ivy, very similar to Cubs Wrigley Field. You know what? I'll walk through that building, and then we're at Polk Street. And for those of you on the other channel, you know, Polk Street is another one. That we hear a lot when we're on the other channel. I'll be honest with you, I don't know that I've ever been in this part of the campus. So I am usually a little bit further north. I always get concerned when people listen to me at squirrel speed. I also think I talk too fast anyhow. I get very impatient with people who are slow talkers. And I'm sure that some of you get very impatient with how fast I talk. So you've got the libraries, shops. So apparently there's retail space here. I don't know if that's sort of like the bookstore or what. You've got the lecture halls from 120 to 199 here. The street that, by the way, the street that we crossed back there was Taylor Street, right? So Taylor Street is the street that I talked to you about being very Italian as we move further westward. The street that we're coming up to is Roosevelt. Sorry. James, I believe that everybody who's tried to climb it exactly once before they were slapped on the wrist. So one of the things that I've been doing is I've been going through and cataloging all of the past videos on the other channel. And again, that's what, 3.5, 4 months of videos. And I can tell, depending on the mic I was using, I'm guessing, I felt like I had a baritone voice in some of those early ones. Or it was after a hangover or something. But my voice sounded much deeper in those videos than I think it sounds now. I spoke to the idea that right when we walked the murals, we were a few blocks south of here, but just behind this building are the 4 baseball fields that you would have seen on the map and we would have seen from that video. So my opinion, and my opinion might be wrong, but as I've always said, my opinion matters on this channel. This is a very good commuter city. I'm sorry, commuter city, so Civic Rail. We do have a lot of people that live in the suburbs, but even they'll take the train in because it's not that it's expensive, to drive in. It's so time consuming. You lose so much time trying to drive into the city for work, and the parking prices are just stupidly exorbitant, right? It's just going to be ridiculous to economically as well as that. Now, if there are plenty of businesses that have moved out to the suburbs, so you've got the Northbrook area to the north, and that's Walgreens, Abbott, Baxter. Those are driving communities. So those people live in the suburbs, and they will drive across the suburbs to get to those locations. Out in the west, you've got a technical corridor out by Naperville, Oak Brook through Naperville, down I-88. That's, again, you'll drive to work there. And then to the south, you've got not as much industry. More of the industry is out maybe in Will County area or on the state line. There are people that actually will live in Indiana and work here in Chicago, and there are commuter train lines that will do that, the South Shore Electric being one of those. Howdy, Twyla. I love that we have the reintroduction of peregrine falcons, and again, hey, I'm not anti-pigeon, except I don't really like pigeons. But to see a peregrine falcon in action is pretty impressive. All right. Again, across the street we've got an Art Deco building, and this Art Deco building is going to be to hide the ugliness of the mechanicals inside of it. So it's going to be a transformer station inside of that. This one is probably the university's power plant, but if you were to look at ComEd, and ComEd is the biggest power provider here in Northern Illinois, ComEd uses basically the same thing, an Art Deco facade that hides from the public all of the messiness of the transformers and the power that goes below that. This is a new convention center they put up here at UIC. So I do an awful lot of career fairs. Wow, career fairs in there. Yeah, so my wife is a world traveler. I always tell people that I've seen every place in America. That I've been on gravel roads in the middle of Montana. That once you turn onto that road, you're committed to that road for 40 miles. Been to almost all the national parks. Been to all the states. Oftentimes, I think I've got 45 states by motorcycle. The rest of the states by car. My wife, being an international traveler, will talk about, we see India or the Philippines where it just seems like there are no rules on the roads. James, it's a considerate question, and I'm hearing a lot of noise. I don't think you guys are, but I'm over the highway right now. Right, so this is the Northwest Highway, but I will answer that question. Last time we walked down Roosevelt, I'm going to walk a little bit into this neighborhood. You'll see a couple of things that are different. So there is a ComEd transformer spot in here. This neighborhood would have been all factory and retail, so no residential, and there still is. I don't think there's any residential in this neighborhood. I don't think it's zoned for residential, but I also don't think it's residential. So sorry. Let me go back to this. So There's a couple of ways that they could get there. That blue line that I always take to when I'm on the other channel, if they got off or if they got onto that line, it's only 3 stops to get to the UIC. So that's one. The other one is they can travel by car, and there are members of that organization that do have cars, and they can travel by car. So those are the 2 most common ways that would occur. But they also walk a lot. So something that I always liked about Germany was that that you could go as fast as you wanted to, but your car had to be up to snuff. And if they looked or inspected your car and your car wasn't, it was not up to standards, they would just take the car. It felt like they would impound the car or make you fix it in that space. So the idea of, hey, go as fast as you want to, but you better be safe enough to be going as fast as you want to. Yeah, one of the things that I used to do is I would take a train to, even when I moved down here, the place where I worked was out in the suburbs, but it was right on the train tracks, and I loved it because I would be able to actually do real work because I would just do all of my administrative work for the hour that I was on the train, and since it was a reverse commute, I always got a seat to myself. So it was just phenomenal. And then coming back, it would be basically the same thing, right? Catching up on meetings, making calls in that space. So last time we were here, we talked about it, that there is a UPS, I want to say plant, but that's not right, distribution center down this direction. There is a train station ahead of us. It's where Amtrak and all of the regional transportation trains get serviced if they need to. We'll head north here. Again, most of this is one-off street retail down here. Yes, I know that we just saw some big box stores, and we'll take another view of that, right? This building, right, Joann Fabrics, Best Buy, Home Depot in this building. But the rest of these are really one-off, either clothiers or restaurants or hairstylists, service type industries. Here you've got Mimi's Tacos and French Fries with handmade Italian rice. This cafeteria is 1,000 years old, right? So it's been here since 1942. It is, so it's one of those places where the X plate special, blue plate special, whatever, you're getting 4 pieces of meatloaf and 2 baked potatoes, it feels like, when you're in there. This one is kind of interesting. So this is Binny's. Binny's is at least a national brand. But what's interesting about this Binny's is that the store is up there. The entrance is in the back. And when you enter, you've got to go up escalators to go do your shopping. We come down here. I'm going to cross the street because I want to take a turn around the corner up ahead. And I want to give you a better advantage of the ComEd transformation station here, transformer station. So I told you earlier, right, that more often than not, they hide how the power transition works here. The reason that this isn't hidden is what we spoke to earlier. There is no real residences back here, and this used to be an industrial area, so there was no real need to hide this from the public, right? There was no beautification need in that space. But this is a massive power inversion station for ComEd. The gas station here is rather new. Chick-fil-A is new. If you're ever down here in the South Loop, and we're in the South Loop on the opposite side of the river. So this, I don't know really what the name of this neighborhood is, but the parking garage right there, and there's things like Marshall's and Home Goods, those types of stores are in there. But that parking, you can get $8 a day there. So if you're ever coming into the city and you can walk a mile and you want to save some money, you can go parking there for $8. So I'd mentioned before that the Fire Training Academy is here, and this building happens to be that. It takes up from here all the way to the street and all the way to that next street over there. We're going to go past a few kind of cool things. There's a bunch of memorabilia about how firefighting used to work here in the city, and then some of the gear, obviously much more viewable from inside. I don't know, maybe someday I'll get more courageous and start going into some of these locations, but you're seeing the old fire hats and fire helmets that we've got there. And apparently there's a basketball league. But this would have been a horse-drawn fire engine back in the day, and they would have filled that up with water and tried to pump. There's a pumping action that it would be manual human power that would pump this. Well, actually, this one seems to be one that had a generator. So this one would have had probably a diesel mechanism that would have allowed them to pull the water up and push it through that space. What do we have in the back there? Another older one back there. Sorry, you're probably not seeing it because of the glass house. Some fire statuary? A statue emblematic of that. And then the retirees, which definitely a lot of people have come through the city of Chicago as firemen. And as we go to the front side of this building, well, I don't know if it's the front side or the back side. As we go to the opposite side of this building, you're going to see some of the places where they actually will be able to set buildings on fire, or how they get up and down fire stairwells in this space. Again, this is a somewhat rundown area of the city in that it was always industrial. We will walk back up towards like the old post office, and Northern Trust used to be in this neighborhood, but Northern Trust recently moved into a lakefront building, the old CNA building. So here, and I can see that the gate's open, so I'll see if I can kind of step in there. Hopefully not catch the ire of any of the police officials. But every once in a while, you'll see smoke rising from this area. I was like, oh my gosh, something's on fire. It's like, no, they're just doing training here. So again, the training division here. You can see all of the fire outside of that door on the red vertical building ahead of me, and to the right of it, you've got that silver space with the door. That smoke is charred from, right, they're going to put the firemen inside, they're going to smoke the daylights out of it, and then help them understand how do you navigate when you can't see, right? And how do you not panic in those situations. But this is Chicago's training facility. Again, as I mentioned earlier, apparently the name of the building here is the Maxwell. This is, there's a Dick's Sporting Good, Home Goods. I'll go across here. But the parking here is $8 a day, which is really cheap for Chicago. And we'll go up Clinton, and so we'll see the backside of Portillo's. By the way, if you ever come to Chicago, you've got to go to Al's No. 1 Beef. You've got to go to Portillo's. I would encourage you to go either to Wolfie's or Superdog for classic Chicago hot dog. And the thing about Wolfie's and Superdog is that they have cute or kitschy statues honoring the hot dog in that space. But Portillo's is another kind of a Chicago thing. There are now, I think there are a couple of Portillo's in California that they've franchised out. The owner of Portillo's, so Frank Barnabas, the salad bar that's inside of a Portillo's, that's the guy's real last name. So you've got the Portillo's building right here. This is at lunchtime. So Portillo's always has this odd element. You can see that they've got a drive-through here, and the drive-through is right. You talk into a speaker and tell the order taker what you want, and you drive around and you get it. Well, at lunchtime, they're so busy that the order takers come out and they line up down the street, and there might be 5 of those sometimes taking orders for people, and that's, that they'll do the transaction on the street, and eventually you'll drive up to the window and you'll be fine. Again, Marshalls, right? PetSmart, Home Depot, Dick's Sporting Goods, Nordstrom Rack, Five Below. Now this building that's orange ahead of us, it's just been kind of re-renovated. And it was, as I said earlier, this used to be the Northern Trust building. Northern Trust being an old school bank. There are 4 or 5 different buildings here in Chicago that are Northern Trust. CNA, which you actually can't see it from here, but it's a very tall building on Michigan Avenue. Sorry, not Michigan Avenue, it's on Wabash. It is between Jackson and Van Buren. Behind this building, you've got the train tracks. So these are the trains that run underneath the post office, are right behind there. And then the river is on the other side of the train tracks. There you see that's a Metro train heading out. There's a couple of interesting federal buildings up here. So again, we've talked about the post office before, and there are 2 post offices. The operational post office is still here, and the old post office, which again, I've showed you the rooftop of that. I still haven't edited the interior one. But then the building on the left, well, the shorter building on the left is again another post office building. And the taller building behind that is the Customs House here in Chicago. You see the Goliath building ahead of us, the BMO building. That building it's only been open since about COVID. I would say that they started construction on that in 2016. And now I think it's fully occupied. Well, it's capable of being fully occupied. Yeah, and if you go to the Wolfie spot, you'll probably see the big wolf statue. When you go to Superdog or to Wolfie's, the hot dog and fry, a lot of places in Chicago, they're going to wrap the hot dog and fries together. So some use wax paper, and they start wrapping the hot dog up, and then they dump a bunch of fries in there. And it was basically just so you could eat very quickly. It would have been like fish and chips from England. The Superdog, though, you get it in a little box. So there's a little flimsy cardboard box, and you get your hot dog and your fries in there. This is somewhat interesting. You've all seen advertisements for the dollar bus, right? Or the mega bus, the dollar bus. They don't go to an actual terminal or a depot because it costs money to be able to have a port at a terminal or a depot. So they really just pick people up right here on the street. Let me get to the corner here. You can see that bus right there. That is the pickup location for the megabus or the dollar bus. This, I've never gone back here. You know what? We can go back here and look to the left and we'll see the train tracks. I'm sorry, look to the right and see the train tracks. But this is an operational post office. And it's mostly these very large trailers that are moving around, and stuff moves in bulk here at this post office. Just going to give us a bit of a peek. We'll see two things. We talked about one of these buildings already in the past, but this is just another perspective of that building. So here, right, we can see a train coming in. This again is going to be a metro train, so it's coming in from one of the suburbs, coming down here, and just the plethora of trains and switches, and every young kid's dream to see how trains work would be in this yard. You've got another power station here, but again, being that it's an industrial area, there's no reason to beautify it. And then you see this building behind it, which has, I don't know if the camera is showing you the curves, but the 10-story concrete structure that's in the middle of that, that's called Marina City. Sorry, the engine's coming down right now. Engine's much louder. That's called Marina City. And 30 years ago, this was the only residence in Printers Row that we're looking at right now. And none of the other tall buildings existed. So it was in the middle of nowhere. You would walk across several fields. There was a street there, absolutely. But it was open land for a half mile in almost all directions. It felt like when you'd come down here. So now the rest of Printers Row has kind of built itself around that old location. And it has the look of an old building, right? So I think that it's a 1970s structure, and it feels every bit of a 1970s structure. We'll head back to Canal Street. I'll give you another perspective of the old post office. And then I've got to get ready and head over to a client. Yeah, if you look at old pictures of Grant Park, the train tracks that are there right now, they used to be in the middle of the lake. Grant Park is all reclaimed land. I love some of these American cities, and I'm sure all over the world, right? But Boston, all of the reclaimed land in Boston. So here's inside the post office, a big truck moving around inside that building. Chicago is another one. So almost all of Streeterville, all of Grant Park is reclaimed land. Again, you've got another operational post office over here. I'm going to caution you, always walk on this side of the street when you're around here, because the trucks that come down from those two ramps, they don't pay attention quite as much as you'd like. You can hear an alarm going off, and that is somebody about to exit the post office. And again, this one is the Customs House, Chicago's Customs House. And if you look up on the top right, you've got the bald eagle sculptures shown into the building. Yeah, the other one that I really think is enjoyable, it's called Museum Campus, but when they were building the Field Museum, it was the only thing there, right? The Field Museum is colossal. It is a magnificent structure and sizable building there. And there used to be pedestrian ways that would go over Michigan Avenue, so now you cross Michigan Avenue at street level. Again, here you're seeing the signage of the United States Customs House there. And here I'll try, but it's going to be challenging because they usually... Wow, a car just went down that street. That doesn't make sense. Okay, now I see. The car went down that street and U-turned. So this still has post office boxes here. So this part of the post office is where you would have foot traffic, and people will have post office boxes in this particular part of the building. And about halfway down the building, you can go in and buy stamps and such. Now I see what happened. So the old post office, it used to be impossible to get into the parking because of some construction that was going on. This would have been torn up, and I'll show you what it would have looked like torn up in just a moment. But this is the old post office. 13 stories in the middle, and I think 15 on the 4 posts. It is actually a conglomerate of 3 different buildings that are all kind of connected on the inside. The Batman films, this was the old Bat Cave of Gotham City. I'm going to see if I can get you a view of this. So you can see you've got the street here, right? And then the street kind of stops. You got those massive girders. Below those massive girders, and you can see even more opening at the far end of this, down by where the crane's at, there's railroad tracks. So this is where the Union Station trains leave, right? We saw those 7 or 8 tracks on the other side of the post office. They're going underneath this area. And it had been, I guess, not maintained well enough for quite some time. And over the past 3 years, I think, they've had to tear this up. And right here would have looked just like that. And as you look down, you would have seen the train tracks. Because there's fencing there, I don't think that I'll be able to show you much, but let's give it a shot. We'll see if we can get a good angle on any of the old railroad tracks. Or they're not old, these are operational railroad tracks. You'll see commuter rails or commuter trains running underneath there. Let me see if I can lift this up a little bit. Not that way. Yeah, I'm just not sure if you'll be able to see that, but that's about the best angle I can get with any kind of leverage here. I do have some pictures from basically... Oh, why is that doing? Excellent. You can see the 2 diamond-shaped lights right there. From that window, I can look down on that other video that I've got, and it shows you the exposed rail tracks. So, okay, folks. We've seen the south side of basically the Eisenhower Expressway or the Congress Parkway from Western Avenue and the Medical District all the way into the river, basically. So the other side of that orange building is the Chicago River. So, and I think that's where we'll leave it for today. Hope everybody enjoyed this. I know it was longer than we expected, and it was a little bit, we had some transportation fun at the beginning, but hopefully I was able to fill the time with some good information. And, welcome to my city of Chicago. All right, folks, I'm going to end it now. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks, James. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Fuzzy, for being here. And I will see you soon.